Okay, so I've done many videos on the bar exam essays over the course of the years, but this video is going to be a little bit different because things are changing. For July 2026, I really wanted to make a video to emphasize how things are changing and the way that you can best prepare. For those of you who don't know, the UBE, the Uniform Bar Exam, is being phased out for the next-gen bar exam. It's going to change how the bar exam is tested. There's only going to be 3 sessions versus the 4. The subjects that are being tested is going to be a little bit different. But for your purposes, if you're taking the UBE, what you really need to know is that the bar examiners are starting to change the Uniform Bar Exam to better account for the subjects being tested on the next-gen bar exam. Before we really dive into this, I just want to mention, be sure to check us out at BarcastAudio.com if you are studying for the bar exam. We have audio outlines, essay attack sheets. I do tutoring there. If you need anything, my tutoring sessions are filling up as we get nearer to the exam day. So be sure to check us out at BarcastAudio.com and subscribe to this channel for more of these videos. So the big thing to know for the July 2026 essays on the bar exam and on the Uniform Bar Exam is that they're taking away subjects. They are taking away conflicts of law, family law, wills, trusts, and estates, and secured transactions. So these are kind of big ones. These are kind of big subjects that were always open to being tested on the exam. This limits the field, the possible outcomes, the possible subjects you can be tested on. So obviously it's going to change how we prepare for the exam. So a couple things that this really means. First, off the top, this means that the MBE subjects matter more. Those are contracts, con law, evidence, civil procedure, real property, criminal law, and torts. Those are they've never been more important because not only are they the basis of your multiple choice questions, your multiple choice answers, they are also now going to be more frequently tested on the essay section. They are more likely to be tested. So you can prepare by knowing those rules cold. The second thing to know here is that with the removal of these essay subjects, that leaves only 2 true essay-only subjects, and that is agency and partnerships and corporations. 2 beefier, bigger subjects, but it does limit the scope of what you need to memorize. You need to know these 2 subjects cold. You need to really dive deep into both of these. You should be doing more and more practice essays on both of them because you should understand that in all likelihood, one or both of these, probably both of these, is going to be on the July 2026 exam. And that should change the way in which you are preparing for this exam. The third thing I want to talk about here is that you should view this change as an opportunity. The scope of this exam has never been more limited, the UBE. So you need to jump on this opportunity to better familiarize yourself with the nuances of the law, both the MBE subjects that I mentioned before and the remaining essay subjects, like I talked about with agency and partnerships and corporations. This is an opportunity for you. Too often students talk about the bar exam, they think about it like it's an insurmountable thing. It's never been more surmountable, in fact, because you know basically what's going to be tested on the essays. You just need to put the work in and devote yourself and make the most of your time now, the extra time you've been granted, to really know the nuances of the law and be able to demonstrate that to the bar examiners. So from a practical perspective, what does it mean to make the most of that time? What it means is you should be doing more practice essays. I always recommend this to students. It's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant, but you have to do it. You need to do them under time conditions. You need to write out model answers maybe before you're doing them under time conditions because that'll make you better familiarized with how good answers, how successful answers work and what they look like and what it feels like to write one out and how mechanical that process can be when it's really working well. So take the time that you've been granted, the extra time, to not only learn the nuances of the MBE subjects, the rules themselves. Don't be whiffing on a rule now because you have that extra time. You don't need to memorize those extra subjects, but also do more practice essays for stuff like agency and corporations. You make the most of that time so you basically know any possible essay that could arise in the subjects of business associations and corporations. So the biggest difference I see with students who pass the first time and fail the first time is this idea of doing practice questions. People just don't want to do them. I know I mentioned they're unpleasant, and they are. But to do practice exam essays under time conditions is one of the most critical skills you can do entering the exam. And too often students are just very welcome to just be like, you know, I outlined a bunch of essays, I kind of know what's going on, and they never do them under time conditions. And then you got to practice how you play. I come from a sports background. That's how I always like to think about it. You need to practice how you play, and on exam day, you're going to be tasked with writing 6 essays, 6 about 30-minute essays, and you need to prepare adequately to do that. And the way that you play is how you practice. So you need to be taking time conditions. Now, you don't have to do a full 3-hour session, but you need to be taking individual essays, and you need to be doing more longer sessions. So maybe you do an hour and a half session where you do 3 essays back to back. You need to learn how to manage your time within a concentrated period where you're moving on from question to question. I know many times that comes up in law school, and many law schools are testing students that way now to better prepare them for the exam, but you need to be prepared to do these bar exam essays in this way. So my final bit of advice here in terms of the changes to the uniform bar exam in July 2026, in terms of what's new and how the changes impact the way I want you to prepare for this exam, is one thing that remains the same, that remains true always, is I want you to do something physical with your notes, because too often it's easy to kind of be passive in your way that you're learning, but this additional time that's been granted to you by the reduction of subjects being tested, you should be using that to better memorize the subjects by doing something physical with your notes, by making flashcards, by making physical outlines, by handwriting things. In this digital world we live in, it's very easy to forego that because it is uncomfortable, and at times it's not as pleasant as just typing up something or reading off of an outline. But you need to do something physical because that's how we really put this law to memory. And maybe that hasn't worked for you in the past. Maybe you would know yourself better than I would. But I find generally with students who have trouble with the bar exam, who are not really getting into it initially, they're not doing anything physical with their notes. This is what I think is one of the most critical skills you can have in the early bar exam process. Maybe you haven't been studying as hard as you were earlier in law school, in the last year of your law school. Get back into it with the bar exam. Don't leave any stone unturned. Be physical with your notes, be intentional with your notes, and you will pass the bar exam. That does it for us in this short video. Be sure to check us out at BarcastAudio.com if you're looking to pass the exam. We have all sorts of resources for you there. Audio outlines, crash courses, prep sheets, everything you could possibly need, we have it over at Barcast. So check us out over there.